Hello everybody, I'm just popping in real quick to let you know that I recently had gotten a few comments about subtitles and in general making it a bit more easy to understand with these long form chapters of audio, and so I would like you all to know that there are now written chapters of Cherry Soda Chapstick available that you can use to read along or even enjoy on their own. You can find these chapters either on my Patreon at patreon.com/shameless, where they are available for completely free. There's no paywall, you can just find them there, free for access, as well as on my Discord channel, the link to which you can find in the channel About section with my other links, or on my link tree, where in the important links channel there is a link to a Google Drive with all of the chapters up till now available. I recommend you check them out because I put a lot of work into it and commissioned a lovely artist to help me. Coincidentally, also the co-writer of this story, to really spruce it up. Other than that, I want to thank you all for sticking with this story, those of you that do, and the positive comments surrounding it have really been really wonderful to read. It's been a lovely break from the routine of normal ASMR audios, which is nice. It's nice to do something else and have it be appreciated. So yeah, thank you for sticking with it. There's lots more to come. I'll let you get to it now. Bye-bye. It had been at least a week since Maude saw that image of Alicia, bruised, battered, tear-stained and quiet. It was a haunting image as she disappeared into her room. She had checked Alicia's room later that day and found it as empty as the look Alicia gave her. Her hand lingered on the doorway. Maude heard that she was on temporary suspension, which was unsurprising when she heard of Luke's state. She was surprised temporary suspension was all she was dealt. The quiet in the house was nice. Maude had all the freedom to go about the space as she pleased. There was no annoying Alicia sprawled across her couch, ruining the perfectly draped throw. No Alicia barging in at 2, 3, 4 a.m. with another set of footsteps, followed by noises that could only be discussed in secrets. The milk stayed exactly the same amount as she left it. The apartment was always just as she left it. Maude liked it. Nothing changed. Well, at least one thing did. Jessie pulled her by the waist into a kiss, holding Maude's chin as she did so. Maude smiled into the kiss, resting a hand on Jessie's shoulder as she kissed back gently. She hummed, letting Jessie continue the kiss for as long as she pleased. Jessie pulled away, stealing a few small kisses from her lips as she did so. Her kisses trailed down to Maude's cheek, to her jaw, and down her neck. Maude smiled a little, resting her fingers on Jessie's cheek. Okay, she snuck in between the kisses. You're gonna be late. Oh, just a little longer. Jessie grinned into the kiss, pulling Maude closer as she continued. After a while longer, Jessie finally paused, smiling down at Maude. I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. Maude smiled up at her, nodding. Slowly, Maude watched as Jessie slipped from her grass and off onto the campus. The warmth slowly disappeared, as did the tall, curly-haired swimmer. Her heart continued its soft rhythm. A sigh left Maude as she turned around to face the house. Same couch, same kitchen, same everything. Maude pressed her lips together. She closed the door behind her, running her hands through her hair. Maude slipped back into her room, letting the day pass her by from her desk. Alicia still felt bruised. Her wounds had healed up quite well, mind you. Her eye had shrunk and gained back its original color, not to mention its functionality. Her nose had been set back properly, which had hurt like a bitch, but at least Luke hadn't left a lasting mark on her face. She had had to get a crown for a chipped tooth, and her leg was still on a brace for a few days more. But other than that, the damage had largely been mitigated. She hated the stupid brace. It was tight and uncomfortable and ugly and very much restricted the clothing she could wear, but at least she could walk properly again. The benefit of being hurt like this is that there were a lot of girls who took pity on her. All the usual names and faces, and even some new ones, friends of friends, eager to meet Alicia's desperation with tender love and care, a roof and a bed, even breakfast for some of them. Good thing, too. Medical bills were draining her bank account dry. Like student debt wasn't bad enough on its own. Her parents made decent money, but it's not like she saw that much of it, and she'd be in for an earful if she had to explain to them her injuries. So, debt it was. Debt and shitty cafeteria lunches. Right now, she was sitting on a bench outside her dorm room. Well, Maude's dorm room, the one she's squatting in. She was wearing a purple hoodie, the hood pulled up over her head as she pulled air through her vape. And this was her last cartridge, so she'd best enjoy it while she can. Though, this was one of her least favorite flavors, some kind of mint chocolate that she'd mooched off of one of the girls she had crashed with. It was gross and artificial, but it couldn't be helped. Wouldn't be able to afford another one for a couple weeks until her allowance. She was wearing long black skinny jeans, which really were too hot for the weather, but being hot and clammy was better than that brace scraping at her skin. She heard the door to her right open, and her eyes glanced briefly to the side. Yep, Jessie still looked the exact same as she remembered, only with less venom and hatred in her eyes. She was smiling, if anything. Of course Alicia had heard about Jessie and Maude's wonderful new relationship. Who knew Maude was into girls? It's been so long since Jessie's been with anyone. I'm impressed. I'm so jealous of them. Did you see them at practice today? God, goals. Blah, 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 blah. Jessie this, Maude that. So cute, so sweet, so wonderful. Well, she was at least glad to know Jessie was fully capitalizing on her timely disappearance. But whatever. It's not like she'd let herself get scared away so easily. She had a right to be there, and she was going to, because why the fuck would she care about a girl who still hung up on one stupid kiss? Like, whatever. It was a mistake, not a capital fucking crime. She still felt the frustration rise any time she thought back on the other night. The low blows, the deep cuts, the attacks. She told herself it was just a fluke. She was in a vulnerable place, and Jessie dug her thumb into the wound. It didn't mean anything. She got up as Jessie wandered down the path towards the buildings where morning classes would soon be starting, and slipped into the door still swinging shut behind her, a duffel bag with her stuff in it resting against her hip. She headed up the stairs, back to the familiar door, and pushed it open with little regard to stealth or subtlety. She threw the duffel bag onto the couch with a loud thud, strode into the kitchen, and opened the fridge, grabbing out a carton of eggs and a pouch of pre-chopped vegetables. She hadn't eaten anything yet today, and there was a void in her life that could only be filled by a good omelette. She whipped out her phone, unpaused her music, and began humming along to the jovial sounds of the song that was playing last. Some kind of chiptune remixed poppy monstrosity of a song. Maude continued her work, sipping at her coffee as she adjusted her glasses. Her face suddenly soured as she tasted the coffee. I forgot the caramel. She finished up writing the paragraph on her presentation before she promptly stood up. Her arms stretched up into the air, shaking off the stiffness in her joints. I wonder if Alicia's eaten breakfast yet. Maude paused. Why did she think of that just now? It doesn't matter if she has or hasn't. Alicia wanted her to stay away, right? Maude's lips tightened at the memory. She sighed. The music continued in her ears from her headphones, a mix of pop and jazz dancing through her ears. She opened the door, attention on the screen as she continued to walk. Maude made it all the way to the edge of the kitchen before she finally looked up. The initial image of Alicia, no, a mere person in her initially empty apartment, sent lightning through her chest. Maude shrieked. Due to her headphones, her shriek was much louder than intended. She didn't even have time to process who it was as fear shut her nerves numb. Her hand clutched her chest as her heart beat against her ribcage. Jesus Christ! Alicia? Alicia had caught a glimpse of Maude heading out of her room and towards her, and for a moment did not know how to feel. Relief that she hadn't completely ruined her life with her mess? Disappointed that she didn't look worse off without her? If anything, she looked better now. Maybe there was a pang of guilt in there too. Or was that anger? It washed over her quickly, but settled back down the moment it arose. She had had plenty of time to work through this shit. No way was seeing this girl once going to drag it all back up from the neat little box she had crammed it into. So she played it cool, focused on her omelette, and acted as indifferent as she could manage when the banshee wail pierced her ears. Good morning to you too, I guess. She stuck her pinky finger in her ear, pulling it out and inspecting it as if she was looking for blood. You know, people might be sleeping. At least try to be a good neighbor. She grinned, shooting Maude a challenging look, before cracking another egg into the pan and stirring, all while still humming along to the same song. Oh, I'm eating your eggs, by the way. Hope you don't mind. Maude's face flushed pink with embarrassment as Alicia remarked at the shriek. She cleared her throat, trying to not make it obvious that her heart was still pounding. What was she doing here? More importantly, why was she acting so nonchalant? The last time Maude saw her was burned so deep into her memory it might as well have been tattooed. Maude's brows furrowed as she watched Alicia go about her business as if it were just another Monday. What? Maude's eyes scanned the room. They landed on the duffel bag haphazardly thrown onto the couch. Her throat was messed up now. Maude took a breath, turning back towards Alicia. You can't just come back in here, open the fridge, and act like you just got back from class. Where were you? Where'd you go? I know you got suspended, but you just left without saying anything or even texting me to make sure you were okay. Maude scrolled through her texts, seeing nothing recent from Alicia. I haven't seen you for a week, and the first thing you talk about is my eggs? Maude paused. She took a breath, ignoring the accidental innuendo. Where were you? Alicia stopped stirring the omelette for a moment, looking back at Maude with a slight arch to her eyebrow. This was expected. There was no way Maude would simply let things go. No way at all. But she had prepared for that. She had steeled herself to deal with it, just like she always dealt with everything. She was back to normal. Back to the unbothered, unaffected Alicia that was cool and hot and so above the petty stuff. Alicia scoffed a little bit, amused at the worry emanating from Maude, as she turned her attention back to the frazzled girl. Pinky, when have we ever texted regularly? The last text I remember sending you was out of milk, if I remember correctly. She did. She had checked their messages. And we never talk to each other about what we're doing. You're always just like, I'm going to class, and then you leave for the whole day, and I do the same. I'm not your girlfriend, Maude. Just your roomie. She didn't intend for it to come across as sardonic. In fact, her tone was purposefully kept as light and teasing as possible, but when Alicia said girlfriend, it had a slightly sharp edge to it, likely by association to the one actually holding the title. As for where I was, she hummed to herself, flipping the omelette in the pan over to get the other side, then smiled innocently at Maude. Around. Just kind of going from place to place. Why? She asked the question as if it was strange Maude even asked, as if nothing was out of the ordinary for her, and in a way it wasn't. She was no stranger to sleeping around. Some days she wouldn't come home at all. The only difference here is that some days became a week. Maybe more? Alicia was right. Why was she so worked up about this? It wasn't as if she and Alicia had that kind of friendship beforehand. Or even any friendship, to be frank. They had never kept each other posted on their locations. Part of Maude nagged that it was only because the last she saw of Alicia looked like a scene straight out of Fight Club, but even then, if Alicia was fine without her, she would be fine now. Maude paused, regaining her composure. And she was right. She wasn't her girlfriend. Nothing, Maude replied, looking down at the omelette Alicia flipped. People in my class are just asking you what happened between you and Luke, that's all. Now she felt embarrassed. How could she have been so stupid? Did she care too much? Was she too self-important in how Alicia viewed her? Perhaps the fight really was just to get the aggression out and nothing more. Still, that night her words were cut off. You got shell everywhere. Maude adjusted her hair, leaning forward to pick up the bits of eggshell. Her hair slipped from her shoulder, revealing the hickey marks peeking from the collar of her shirt. There we go. Looks like it sunk in for Maude as well. The very same realization Alicia had come to in her time away. There was no reason for them to be so concerned about the other. They had never been anything to each other. They never even got along most of the time. This whole ordeal would be easier for the both of them if they kept their noses out of each other's business. That's what worked for them before, so that's what they'd have to go back to. And I really don't want Jessie to have a reason to yell at me again. She caught a glimpse of discolored skin, and her eyes widened briefly. She brushed the rest of Maude's hair aside with the back of her hand, peeling back the collar with her fingers, revealing a whole fresco of purples and reds. Jesus, you two don't waste any time, do you? I'm gone for 1 week, and suddenly you have a whole sexual awakening? Her fingertips lightly traced the skin of Maude's neck for a moment, inspecting the marks curiously. She hadn't pinned Jessie as such an eager... Alicia retracted her hand again, pulling her focus back to her breakfast. She mused smugly. My position is being threatened here. Hey, what are you... But it was too late. Alicia's fingers were already brushed against Maude's sore neck, tugging at her collar and revealing what's beneath. Maude flushed a dark red, quickly pressing her collar back to her chest. Ask first! God! She tucked a piece of hair behind her ear, trying to distract herself from the prickling in her cheeks. Her ears grew red at Alicia's comment. Maude's gaze fell to the side, her posture straight and chin held high. We didn't go all the way, Maude admitted. She got a call from her team and had to rush over. Her fingers combed through her hair as she looked back at Alicia. It was a good lie, but still a lie. The truth was that they barely began to remove clothing before Maude began to freak out. Jessie assured her it was fine, Maude getting in her head, so all Maude was left with was a cuddle session and a trail of hickeys. And she actually went? Alicia couldn't help but laugh and shake her head disapprovingly. She opened one of the overhead cupboards and grabbed a plate, setting it down on the counter and sliding the omelette from its metallic nest. Opening and closing several more cupboards in search of salt and pepper, she continued her judgment. She's barely dating you for a week, and she abandons your first moment of intimacy together for her little swimming club? Talk about dropping the ball, sheesh. But hey, I'm not exactly the authority on being a good girlfriend, so what do I know, right? She wouldn't admit it, but she was kinda glad she had this little nugget of information. A little flaw of Jessie's she can latch onto. That's what her armor is made of. That's what's keeping her sane. A collection of little flaws to destabilize that pedestal she had put Jessie on for all that time. Okay, well, if you guys ever decide to pick up where you left off, can you, let me know? I do not want to be here for that, no thank you. Not that I don't enjoy a show. She found the salt she was looking for and grinded it out over the omelette before picking up the plate and grabbing a fork from the drawer, which she pushed closed with her hip. But I think I'll sit out on this one. She walked past Maude, braced clicking and clacking against the wooden flooring before being dampened by carpet and eventually couch as Alicia made herself comfortable in her spot. What did she mean exactly by position? Her eyebrows scrunched up at Alicia. God, she was an enigma sometimes. Maude pouted. She's dedicated to her education. She made her way towards the fridge, taking out the caramel sauce as she began to shake it around. I think it's cute. It's sweet how much she cares about her teammates. The memory flashed in her mind once more of that night. Jessie's hand slowly trailing up Maude's shirt as the two of them were heated in kisses. The initial jolt of Maude's body against Jessie's touch. Maude tried to tangle herself more in the kiss to distract from the touch, but it was no use. With the unclasp of her bra, Maude ripped herself away like a band-aid against a wound. Jessie's worried brows and gentle tones scanned over her. Maude's face heated. Why would she do that? She liked Jessie, didn't she? This is what she should want. Can we not right now? Was all Maude said. Without another word, Jessie slipped her hand out from under her shirt, apologizing as her position got into something less invasive. Maude was sure that if Alicia got wind of any of this, she would mock her to the ends of the earth. Maude stirred the caramel into her coffee, not looking up from it as she continued. Her face twisted at Alicia's comments. Not that I don't enjoy a show, Maude scoffed, shaking her head. If I can take several nights of girls moaning right beside my head, you can take one night of it. It's not like we're gonna go at it right here on the couch. Alicia had a bite of omelette in her mouth as Maude shared her thoughts on how wonderful Jessie was, and she did not suppress the eye roll it brought on, sighing out through her nose as she chewed. It was clear she didn't exactly agree, but she wasn't going to press it further. Wasn't her place, anyways. Hey, I thought I told you not to knock couch sex till you try it. Or is it a Jessie thing again? Oh, wait. Is she all boring? Damn, you certainly know how to pick them, huh? She was definitely just teasing for the sake of it now, but this felt comfortable. It was more familiar. This is how it's meant to be. Maude defending some dumb topic while she endlessly poked fun at it. This was natural. But really, let me know. I don't mind looking for someplace else if you want the apartment. Just text me or something, I don't know. She didn't want to admit to Maude that the idea of hearing her and Jessie, or even worse, seeing them, sounded like the most uncomfortable thing in the world. One girl glaring at her because she hates her guts, the other constantly worrying over her because she saw her have a complete breakdown because of the first girl. No, she would like to avoid Jessie for as long as she could, because if she didn't, Jessie would no doubt find some way to turn it on her. Maude looked up from her coffee at Alicia's small moment of genuine consideration. The spoon clinked against her glass as she continued to stir the caramel in. Well, thank you. And you can let me know too if you want the place to yourself, because now... Maude rinsed the spoon, setting it in the dishwasher before she looked towards Alicia with a somewhat proud smile. I have somewhere to go as well. The sweet sip of cold coffee afterwards almost felt like a victory. A small one, but still. Just please don't do it on my bed. That's the only thing I ask. Ring, ring. Maude glanced down at her phone, immediately answering the call, pressing it against her ear. Jessie? And thus began the one-sided conversation. Maude leaned against the counter, a smile creeping onto her lips the second the other party spoke. Lunch? Nothing really. Why? She grinned as she pressed her cheek against the phone further. I guess I could make time. It'd be rude to turn down the ace. A giggle drew out from Maude. All right, yeah. Maude glanced at Alicia as she began walking back towards her room. Her mouth parted. For a second she nearly mouthed something along the lines of, I'll be out for lunch, or there's pasta in the fridge. But she paused. Her mouth closed into a small, polite smile as she continued into her room. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I'll be there. The door clicked behind her, muffling her conversation. Ew, why would I use your bed? She started, but was cut off by the tinny music that rumbled out of Maude's phone, and their conversation had promptly found its end. She was annoyed for a moment, but then let it slide off her back like water off a duck's. No need to get uppity about it. It's girlfriend stuff, or whatever. Ugh, God. Listening to them flirt was so exhausting and gross. She was fine with people flirting in front of her, but something about hearing Maude do it, especially with Jessie's name in her mouth, something about it just felt gross. She took another bit of omelet, leaning back against the cushions of the couch. This was going to be a whole ordeal, wasn't it? She needed a drink. And so, that evening, she found several. This evening especially, there was a small gathering of a few different friend groups happening in one of the other dorm buildings, and whilst it was certainly no party of any real capacity, it was the perfect excuse to get a few drinks in and get some much-needed distraction without dealing with too much chaos. She wasn't explicitly part of these groups, but they were part of the circles she hovered around most. Some of them were classmates, and several of them seemed to think she should be there, so an invitation was extended and accepted eagerly. What she hadn't accounted for were all the goddamned questions. Apparently, Maude hadn't been the only person worried about her disappearance, since she was suspended for a week and seemed to never stay in the same room for more than one night each. People were curious, wondering what happened, what Luke had done to deserve all this. Alicia happily explained, of course. It'd be good to get the word out about how much of a petty rat he was. She just slightly obscured how much Maude was involved, mentioned as an additional rather than the centerpiece. There are enough rumors going around as is. And then they wanted to play Truth or Drink. Alicia had rolled her eyes and sighed, suggesting something more interesting, like spin the bottle instead, but they were having none of it. Truth or Drink would be played, and it quickly became apparent that that game was offered just to trap her into confessions. What happened after you took Maude home from that party? How do you feel about Jessie? Is Jessie really your ex? Uncomfortable question after uncomfortable question, they were determined to get their answer. Sadly for them, Alicia had an iron stomach, and no one could outdrink her. She had definitely gotten a bit tipsy, though. She'd excused herself from the party before things got all too crazy, but the buzz she had going was relatively significant. She had stopped at just the right time. She'd for sure get drunk if she hadn't cut it short. She made her way up the stairs, slightly clumsily, glowing with pride at her victory over the overly curious gossips she had escaped, and opened the door after a minor amount of fumbling with the key. "I'm back," she said in a sing-songy voice, beginning the precarious process of taking off her shoes. Are there any leftovers, or should I make something myself? Jessie ran her hands along Maude's arms, burying her face in the crook of Maude's neck as her perfume wafted between them. Maude smiled, intertwining her fingers in Jessie's curls. I thought you had a party, Maude whispered, tilting her head to one side. Jessie mumbled something against her neck to the tune of "Doesn't matter." The touch grew deeper and deeper, with Jessie sweeping her arms beneath Maude's lower back. Her fingers trailed up her spine as if it were tracing a forest path. The beating in Maude's chest grew louder. This is fine. Jessie switched to the other side of Maude's neck, decorating it with kisses as well. Maude's face burned like a drunk's, her vision now dizzy as her eyes glued onto the ceiling. Fuck, Jessie whispered, trailing the kisses down her neck and towards her chest, beginning to unbutton the polo. Maude swallowed, lips tight. Nerves rattled beneath her skin as confusion twisted her further. She liked Jessie, didn't she? She did. She was sure she did. Jessie wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just... Maude's breathing deepened as she watched Jessie go further and further. She felt Jessie's hand beginning to slide into the hem of her jeans, 2 fingers tugging eagerly. Maude jolted. Wait! Alicia's tipsy voice cut through the heat. The pair jolted at the sudden noise as Maude hurried to button her shirt back up. Jessie's eyes snapped onto Alicia at the doorway, her breathing frustrated and brows furrow. What the fuck? When did she get here? Her gaze landed back on Maude, looking for an explanation. Oh, just earlier. I didn't mention that. Maude cleared her throat. She tucked a few strands of hair behind her ear. No, you didn't. Jessie sighed. A strange part of Maude felt relieved, almost thankful towards Alicia. Guilt began to seep into her skin at even the tiniest feeling of relief. Maude looked toward the door, letting Jessie sink into her. Alicia, are you drunk? She raised a brow, looking the unstable girl up and down. Alicia looked at the display. Ruffled clothes, messy hair, fresh bruises dotted all over necks and collarbones. Yep, they were literally about to get busy before she walked in. She thanked whatever god was watching for letting her arrive not a moment later. She quit trying to take her shoes off, deeming it too inconvenient to do in the middle of this conversation, with all the little straps and buckles and shoelaces and blech. She sighed deeply, briefly glancing at Jessie before leaning against the door behind her with a slightly wobbly step, her movements a lot more wavy and broad than they normally were. It was as if some amateur Jack Sparrow character actor had possessed her bones and was forcing her into doing subconscious hand flourishes and dramatic hip sways for emphasis. She scoffed. Psh, drunk? Me? Honey, sweetie, baby girl, this is nothing. I'm tipsy at best. She chuckled slightly, as if there was something funny happening, and then crossed her arms and stared Maude down. Am I interrupting something? You know, there's a reason I told you to text me, Pinky. It's for situations like this. With the last word, she motioned offhandedly in Jessie's direction, though she did not devote any attention to her besides that. She was having a conversation with Maude. Just with Maude. No one else important was in the room right now. Ugh, she did not want to be here. Jessie couldn't help but roll her eyes at the excessive nicknames thrown about from Alicia's end. At this point, she didn't know whether or not she was rude or just downright stupid. Maude flushed at Alicia's comment about the texting. She cleared her throat, hiding the bruises with the soft couch throw. I didn't think of it, okay? Besides, it's not that late. I didn't expect you to come home so soon. And you were the one who told me to try couch sex. She told you to try couch sex? Jessie's brow raised towards Maude. No, well, yes, but not in that way. Maude shoved Jessie lightly, who only returned it with a grin and a yank closer. Beneath her breath, Maude whispered Alicia's name,
Alicia.
a reminder to who else was in the room. The reminder was met with an eye roll and a brush off as Jessie whispered sweet nothings into Maude's ear. It was clear from the red spreading across Maude's face that whatever Jessie was whispering clearly had an effect, and a good one too. But still, Maude tried to keep her composure. There's still some, pasta in the fridge, Alicia, if you want some. Jessie turned Maude's attention back toward her, pressing their lips together carelessly. Maude squeaked a little, feeling the weight of embarrassment kick in as she was distinctly aware that they had an audience. Jessie, however, seemed to be aware of this as well, and decided that embarrassment didn't fit her quite well. She sat up, pulling Maude onto her lap as she stamped her jaw in kisses. Her eyes glanced towards Alicia momentarily. A small moment of clear acknowledgement, yet no remorse. Maude pressed her lips tightly together, looking off to the side. Jessie, come on, there's someone else here. Maude slunk her face away from the kisses, fixing the buttons on her shirt. Alicia didn't make any attempt to look away at first, stubbornly staring at the ostentatiously flirty show Jessie was putting on. She couldn't be sure of it at first, but as things went on and the tension in the room grew stronger, that quickly changed. Jessie was doing this on purpose. Then that brief look at her. She wanted her to see. What, did she want her to be jealous? Did she want to show off? Was she trying to rub in the fact that she was affectionate to anyone but... No. She told herself she wasn't going to think like that anymore. She had clutched so stupidly to the idea that she had ruined something somehow, that Jessie was the one that got away or something. That the rejection of that night was an indication of her failure as a person, but that was stupid. She realized that now. It was delusional. She and Jessie would never have worked. It would have been awful. Jessie was judgmental. Jessie held grudges. Jessie could do anything as long as she felt justified. That girl lived on the moral high road, and she fucking delighted in showing it off to people so far below. She doesn't know what she ever saw in that girl. What Maude still sees in her. She was just so... The kissing kept going for a moment too long, and a knot formed in her stomach. She had trouble hiding her annoyance with the alcohol taking hold of her feature, and so she sighed loudly and turned around, pulling open the door again. Cool! Guess I'll be heading out then! The frustration was clear to hear in her voice, slightly reminiscent of an angry teenager slamming a door shut to avoid a scolding. She was kind of throwing a little tantrum. Hey, Alicia, could you maybe leave? Sure, Maude, I can do that for you, just like we talked about. Awesome, Alicia, thanks for being such a cool roommate. No problem, Pinky. Enjoy your stupid-ass fucking couch sex with your stupid-ass fucking girlfriend. Was that so fucking hard? She reenacted the fictional conversation as Jessie continued her pointed, petty crusade, and with a slam of the door, Alicia had left again. Maude's eyes widened at Alicia's outburst, watching as it continued. Her eyebrows scrunched together in anger as she watched the other whine and drag towards the empty night wind. You don't have to talk like that! I didn't even do that on purpose! What is your problem? But it was no use. Alicia continued on to talk about their stupid-ass fucking couch sex and her stupid-ass fucking girlfriend. Maude felt a nerve snap. Alicia went on and on as if the mere image of her was an inconvenience all on its own. Her ears rang. You're such a fucking ass sometimes! Maude called out as Alicia slammed the door behind her. Silence filled the room. Jessie's eyes trailed back towards Maude, who was huffing with anger. The space between her brows crinkled as her shoulders raised and sunk with every angered breath. What is her problem? I catch her doing this all the time. I've caught her doing worse than this. I've never scolded her this bad over that. Maude launched into a rant. I didn't think of texting her. She even says we don't need to constantly update each other. Besides, she usually goes home with someone else anyways. Oh, but when I'm the one who has fun, it's suddenly bad. Suddenly I'm the asshole in this? Like she isn't the one who told me I was too uptight and needed to get some. Jessie's face clearly soured at that. She says that, but when I actually do it, she gets pissed. Since when has she ever texted me to warn me? Since when has she texted me anything other than, we're all out of milk? When I expect an update, she looks at me like I'm crazy, but when she doesn't get one from me, I'm the inconsiderate one? Are you kidding me? Maude huffed, hair slipping off her shoulder. Jessie looked at her with sad eyes, trying to smooth the hair away from her face as she rubbed her back. I know, Jessie said, and she meant it. She planted a small kiss on Maude's head. As Alicia stormed down the stairs of the dormitories, charging back into the early evening air, she huffed with anger, and tears of frustration welled up in her eyes. Surely she didn't deserve such treatment from Jessie after all this. What did she even want from her? An apology? A fucking written letter with a gift coupon? To cut off her finger like some kind of yakuza? None of this was her fault. She had done nothing wrong. She was doing nothing wrong. She stumbled over the stoop of the dormitories, tumbling forward and scraping her knee against the pavement. Tears stung at her eyes as she slowly scrambled upwards and inspected the raw skin lightly seeping blood. She swallowed, trying to get her bearings, trying to figure out what to do. Why did she care so much about this? Was she not over Jessie? Was she still hung up on a girl who wanted nothing more than to make her feel like scum? That couldn't be it, right? She had sworn she'd gotten over it. She bit at her lips as her brows knotted and twisted. She hated this. She hated everything about this. It felt just like... No. She wasn't drunk enough for this. She stood up slowly, eyes drifting towards the dorm building she had left moments before. People always loved an encore, right? People love a good show. Well, she'd show them how to have fun, all right. She'd show them an Alicia that she hadn't shown anyone in a long time. Not since back then. Not since V. She set off, determined to drown her mind in fog and molasses. The road back home was a lot harder to walk on when it kept spinning. The vertigo was awful. She remembered suddenly why she didn't push it this far often. It felt like her guts were going to... Thank goodness the campus was equipped with a proper amount of trash cans, so that Alicia had a proper place to stumble towards as she emptied her stomach contents into the black, smelly void of the trash bag. The smell only made her feel more nauseous, causing a round 2 of regurgitating, but she found that as she righted herself again and breathed in the fresh night air, a bit of clarity had come back to her. Weird how that works. Huh. She set back on the stumbling path back home. People had offered to escort her home, and she had denied them all. She could get home fine on her own. Didn't people know she was the person who had beaten up evil Lark and his goons? She was the hero of the campus. She'd fight off any bad guys. She giggled to herself quietly as her head bumped into the door of the dorm entrance, the glass being closer than she had initially estimated. Whoops. Ow. She pushed it open with some effort and painstakingly crawled and stumbled her way up the stairs, finding the door and struggling a great amount with inserting the key, scraping along the edges of the keyhole like a toddler trying to fit the square block through the circular hole. Eventually, though, she managed, and practically fell forward into the apartment, only holding herself up by leaning on the door for support. Hey, I'm home again. Part 2. Is the fucking Amazon still around, or should I go out for a round 3? She laughed at her own joke, snorting a little as she righted herself to catch her breath and slowly closed the door behind her. Maude's jaw had become tense from the tightness. The words Alicia spewed replayed in her mind over and over again like a broken record. The pure disrespect she displayed and the utter lack of care in her words made Maude's blood boil. To do it all in front of Jessie, too? She scrubbed at the plate. The dishwasher worked fine, but Maude found the trickle of water on her hands often soothed her. Tonight, it was clear she needed that. Jessie had left earlier in the night on account of early training in the morning. She did, however, manage to leave many kisses on Maude's lips before she did so. But right now, Maude couldn't think of that. She couldn't think of the sweet nothings whispered in her ear or the hand that trailed down her back. No, all she could think about was the stupid tone Alicia decided to take with her. Maude heard the jingling of keys from down the hall. In the dead of night, it was practically a scream into the void. She heard the door swing open, keys stuck in the doorknob, and Alicia swung from the handle. Alicia's slurred speech and lame jokes were heard but not reacted to. Maude continued to rinse the plate, making sure it felt smooth as she dragged her palm across its porcelain surface. Alicia began to slowly peel her shoes off, managing the first by leaning against the wall, but nearly stumbling and falling over for the second. She made her way to the coffee table, sitting on its edge as she peeled off the other shoe, which went clattering across the floor back to the door. She planted her hands behind her on the coffee table for a moment, stretching her near-bare legs outwards, knee-high socks slightly muddied and even blood-stained in places from where she had scraped her knees before. She sighed in relief, before continuing boldly on with slurred speech. "I'm so happy to be off my feet. You have no idea. Those shoes were killing me. And then I fell over, and I fucked up my knee, and I've already got this stupid brace." She made a sound like crying, but with not much effort to make it seem convincing. "Why are my legs cursed? Someone placed a hex on me. Why would anyone do that?" She pouted, turning her head towards Maude as her messy hair fell in front of her face and draped over her shoulders. She smiled, eyes slightly unfocused. "Hello, Alicia to Maude. Earth to Houston, mission control." She seemed to get lost in her allegory for a moment before she refocused on the girl in the kitchen. "Hey, you there? Pretty girl in the kitchen. I'm talking to you." "Don't." Maude held onto the sponge, doing her best to keep the cold shoulder cold. Alicia was drunk. That much was obvious. Any anger or sense would be wasted on her. It would slide off her like rain against an umbrella. It was simply not worth the anger. But the closer and closer she got, the more tempting it became. It was fine. This was fine. Maude clenched her jaw. Something had erupted within her. "Oh, you were talking to me? That's so funny, because I swore before you left you weren't talking to me at all." "Huh, that's so funny." Maude moved on to the next dish, scrubbing at it furiously. "And you know what else is really funny? The fact that with every single girl..." Maude took the abrasive side of the sponge, giving one strong scrape at the pan with each beat of the word. "You have brought over, not once was I ever mean to them. Did I scold you for being loud and leaving the living room a mess? Yes, but was I ever mean to the girls you brought home? Absolutely not. Even when I'd wake up for my 8 a.m. class and I'd see an actual stranger in my kitchen, never once did I freak out on them the way you did. Why is that, Alicia? Maude set the pan on the drying rack, grabbing one of the plastic bowls. She threw them into the sink, sending a loud clatter throughout the home. "You were the one who told me to get laid, right? You were the one who told me that I just have to loosen up and get fucked, right? You were the one who told me to have couch sex and do this and do that, but when I actually do it, it's a problem?" Maude took the scrub daddy, scraping furiously against the leftover salsa. "And you're gonna say, oh, it's because you didn't text me. And before you do, let me stop you there. 1, we barely just started, so of course I didn't expect it. 2, you of all people should know that you aren't thinking straight during it. And 3, it was fucking 10 p.m. You don't usually come home until past 1 a.m. How the fuck was I supposed to know you were coming home? Oh, but I don't really need to know that either, right?" Maude let out an exasperated laugh, her head tilted back slightly. Right, because aren't you the one who also told me we don't need to keep each other posted? Don't need to let each other know where the other one is because we just leave the house and do our own things. We don't have that kind of relationship, right? But of course that only applies when it's convenient for you. When it's me who's left here worried that you're out there, possibly dead, it's just... Maude shrugged, looking at Alicia plainly. No big deal. But when it's me having a good time with Jessie, it's this whole huge thing that you need to throw a tantrum about? Maude could feel her blood boiling. She wanted to stop the words, but they kept spilling out from her like a glass tipped over. The frustration and anger had sharpened her tongue into an icicle. Do you have any idea how disrespectful that was? Not only to Jessie, but to me. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was for me? To care about someone and then have it thrown back at my face like that. Fuck. Maude would regret that later, but now she was too riled up. You make me look like an inconsiderate asshole for no good reason, and you... Maude choked on her words, dropping the bowl into the sink as she looked at Alicia. Her eyes were red and stung with the threat of tears, but she quickly pushed it back down, her anger dry once more, her expression a mix of anger and genuine hurt. You did it in front of my first girlfriend! Maude started to yell, and she didn't stop. It was just non-stop. The dumb, goofy grin that was plastered across Alicia's face slowly melted away, replaced with a horrified expression. She could feel the alcohol clutching at her head like a vice, trying to sway it, trying to pull her mind away, to do what she was used to doing. Close your heart to it. The yelling, the violence, the unwavering assault of anger battering against her ears. But somehow she was hearing things perfectly clear. And whilst her vision blurred at the corners, Maude was crystal clear at its center. Slowly, her head drooped downwards, pain permeating her features as Maude made complaint after complaint. Accusation after accusation. This shouldn't hurt this much, should it? Weeks ago, Maude could have hurled the most vile insults at her, and she wouldn't have cared for a moment, so why now? Was it alcohol? Did it make her vulnerable? Or was it because she was right? Maude was making good points, and it reminded her of Jessie. Maybe she was rubbing off on her. Maybe she could see right through her now, but no, it can't be the same. It hurts in a different way. This wasn't fair, was it? She hadn't done anything wrong. Hot tears began to stream down her face halfway through the tirade, without any sound to accompany them. She pulled her arms in close to herself, fingers picking at nails as she tried to come up with a response. Any response. But her stupid brain couldn't form a coherent sentence, let alone a solution to this fucked up situation she created. She began shakily. I wasn't mad at you. Her voice seemed a lot less confident than it usually was. The alcohol had put her in a unique position where, for the moment, pretending to be okay did not even occur to her as an option. I just didn't want to see her, and... She fought the tremble in her lip. She couldn't talk if her lips wouldn't work. What happened to the numbness from earlier? Why did it all hurt so much again? Why did her leg hurt so much again? She was doing it on purpose, and I got so angry, I didn't know what to do, and she said such mean things to me before I was finally okay again, and I don't... Whatever path her mind was wandering down while she was talking was giving up on her. It was winding, tangling, scrambling too much, and she couldn't make sense of it anymore. She had so many things she wanted to express, but none of them were coming out. She sniffed, slowly standing up and wandering over to the kitchen, bumping her hip into the counter accidentally and nearly stumbling over. I'm just... She looked up towards Maude, looking like a miserable child who just told her mother they had done something wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I didn't want to drag you into my mess. Jesse was right. I'm such a fucking garbage person, and if you want me to leave, I can do that. I can find somewhere else, but please just don't hate me. I'm so tired of people hating me. I'm so tired of being hurt. She clutched at her own elbows, standing in the kitchen, wobbling back and forth, looking as if a stiff wind could blow her over, like a single word could shatter her. Why was she showing Maude this? Why was she saying all these things? Why did she insist on clutching onto the shards of promise when she was the one who destroyed it in the first place? Sorry. Maude stared at the whimpering girl that swayed in front of her. Someone once so confident, so cocky, so sure of every move she made without a care for what comes after, now a blubbering mess. Maude's heart stung a little as she examined her. A small pang of guilt ran through her nerves. Perhaps she had been a little too harsh, a little too eager to let her anger out on someone so unexpected to receive it. Nothing she said was wrong, but maybe her delivery was? Maude's brows raised in worry and alarm as she listened to Alicia practically beg her not to hate her. Maude sighed, turning the sink off. In the absence of white noise, one realizes how quiet a moment can be. Alicia looked like such a fragile thing, so hopeless and heart-wrenching. It pained Maude to see her in such a state. Maude slowly wiped her hands, approaching Alicia slowly so as to not frighten her. She drew her hand up slowly, wiping away Alicia's tears as her expression softened. Shh, come on. Gently, Maude wrapped her in an embrace, resting Alicia's head on her shoulder as one hand soothed her hair, the other wrapped around her. I don't hate you, and I don't think you're a garbage person. Maude's voice was calm, a slight rasp to her voice. She thought for a moment, chewing at her lip. I'm sorry for yelling. I shouldn't have. She sighed, smoothing Alicia's hair down. It's just, when you disappeared, I was really worried about you. I didn't know where you were, what you'd do, or even if you were safe. Her cheek pressed against the side of Alicia's head, red hair curled against her face. I was so worried about you. So when you came back and just acted like nothing happened, it made me feel so stupid for caring. Maude rubbed Alicia's back, trying to comfort her as she heard the tears roll out. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. I just wish you told me is all. I don't want you to leave, and I don't hate you. But if I'm gonna understand you, you have to let me understand you. Maude peeled her chest away slightly, only far enough to see Alicia's face. Maude wiped her tears once more, offering her a gentle face. Okay? Alicia sniffed as she felt herself melt into the embrace. She wrapped her arms tightly around the taller girl, almost desperate for affection. Maude was warm. She smelled nice, too. Her skin was so soft, and her hair was so pretty, and she was really drunk. God. As some distance was created again, Alicia looked at Maude with soft, gooey eyes. Slightly puffy from the tears, filled with a glimmer of something hopeful, almost. She hesitated for a moment, clearly looking uncertain. You keep saying that. Do you really care about me? She seemed almost baffled at the concept. What had she done that warranted care? What positive qualities had she portrayed? As far as she knew, all she had been around Maude was selfish, cocky, violent, and even plain rude. How a girl could come to care about her when all she's seen is that, it didn't make sense. Are you sure? She asked the question so innocently and genuinely it was almost funny, as if there was a choice in the matter, as if it was something Maude would want to do. She just couldn't fathom it not being an active effort to do so. That's what she was always told. It's a chore to love you, Alicia. You make it so fucking difficult to care. Alicia's eyes were doughy pools at this point, her hair now a mess, as was her demeanor. It was odd to see Alicia so folded, so docile. Maude frowned, brushing her hair to the side. Then came that question. Her question filled with so much genuine curiosity and hope. No trace of sarcasm or teasing. Maude felt a crack echo in her chest. What had she endured before that made it so hard to believe her? Maude pursed her lips, looking over Alicia for a moment. Well, yeah, of course I do. We've been living together for months now. It'd be weird not to. Maude mumbled, trying to play it off casually. Alicia looked Maude's face over for a moment as the fog slowly settled back in, the emotions draining her enough for the alcohol to conquer land it hadn't before. A stupid grin spread over Alicia's face as she was still held in Maude's arms. So now what, huh? You gonna kiss me or something? Boop! She brought up her finger to Maude's nose, lightly tapping it and giggling to herself as her eyes grew blurred from something other than tears, and she stumbled forward slightly as balance was lost to her for a moment. Oh, right. She'd almost forgotten she was completely slammed. As Alicia's smile came back, so did Maude's relief. She never thought she'd be so happy to see Alicia's drunken smile, but here she was, wishing it'd stay a little longer. Her eyes rolled at Alicia's mindless flirting. Because of course, that's all it was. Mindless, drunken flirting. Her arms wrapped around Alicia as she caught the girl before she could lose her balance. Maude shook her head. I think you're way too drunk and you need to go to sleep. Come on. Maude swooped her up into a bridal carry. The weight of her brace tipped Maude slightly, but she gained her footing. Time for bed. Maude began to make her way into Alicia's bedroom. Alicia drunkenly squealed as she was swept off her feet, devolving into a fit of giggles as she wrapped her arms around Maude's neck and nuzzled in close. As she breathed in, the smell of perfume filled her senses, mixed with another scent that she was not going to pay attention to right now, because that scent was bad and nasty and smelled like tall people and betrayal and way too much chlorine. Wow, oh my god, I'm being taken, abducted by the princess to be one of her royal consorts. My fate is sealed, oh no. Her face buried into Maude's neck, nose brushing against the skin, as in the back of her head a little voice protested. What are you doing? This is inappropriate. But the haze of post-cry catharsis and tequila made it all too unimportant to pay attention to right now. Damn, Pinky, if you wanted me so badly, you could have just asked, you know. She giggled again, swaying her feet a little as the walls bobbed and passed on by. She put one of her hands on Maude's cheek, rubbing her cheekbone with her thumb before trailing down and falling back into Alicia's lap, as if it was too heavy to hold up. You care about me. Maude flushed, her face becoming similar to that of a summer apple. Alicia didn't know what she was saying. This was all word vomit, and Maude should be thankful that was the only kind of vomit occurring. Still, her face prickled at Alicia's face burying into her neck. The sensation was similar to Jessie's, but it wasn't. It was Alicia, and Maude didn't know what to make of the knot in her stomach. She tried to ignore Alicia's drunken blabbering, but when she felt Alicia's touch, she had no choice but to look down at her. Shut up, Maude groaned, shaking her head. Her hip pushed the door open. She tried to set Alicia down gently, but the weight of her brace gave an unexpected tug and weight. Maude stumbled, nearly falling forward into Alicia. "Sorry." Her cheeks burned. As Maude set her down, Alicia did not let go of her neck, which probably didn't aid in the sudden tumble forward. Though Alicia did not at all seem flustered or worried about the accident. In fact, she only added to the problem, trying to keep the pink-haired girl down with her on the bed, but hands loosely peeling off of Maude's neck as she pulled back. She smiled warmly, half-lidded eyes and loosely parted lips amidst red-flushed, drunken cheeks and nose. "What are we going to do on the bed, Augustine?" Her hair splayed out on her sheets as she laid her head down, too heavy to support currently, limbs all crooked and chest moving up and down rhythmically. Maude straightened herself up. "Alicia!" Maude's face burned a bright red at Alicia's comment about the bed. "You're not thinking clearly!" She cleared her throat, looking off to the side. It felt wrong to see Alicia so vulnerable. Her hair sprawled across the white pillowcase in haphazard swirls. Alicia's eyes half-lidded, lips pink and expression lazy. Maude felt as though she were intruding, looking through the eyes of a girl Alicia would have actually taken home. Some girl who Alicia could stand. "I'm going to get you some medicine." She turned to leave. One of Alicia's hands slid down Maude's arm, where she grabbed her hand firmly, stubbornly refusing to let her leave. "Wait!" She sounded desperate again, a sense of legitimate worry in her voice at the idea of Maude leaving. "You have to stay. Where's my goodnight kiss?" Maude peeled Alicia's arms off her, but the moment she turned to leave, she heard Alicia begin whining. "Alicia, what?" Maude sighed, ignoring the burning on her ears. She was an entirely different beast when intoxicated, though she heard she was the same. "No! Medicine!" She leaned down slightly, pressing a hand to her cheek. "Now!" Bossy," Alicia purred as she let herself be pried away and let herself lie back in the bed, humming contently. Alcohol always put her in a certain state of mind. She tried to figure out what it was before. At first she would always just write it off as incredibly horny, but there was more to it than that. As she drank more, it was almost like her desperation increased. Her need to be touched, to be held, to be loved increased exponentially. She'd bury the need in others, quell her thirst, in many ways literally, with any who would let her. As long as she put in the effort to be attractive, to be fun, it was an equal exchange. But right now, there was only her and Maude. And that was dangerous. It made her reckless, desperate. She was saying all the wrong things, crossing all the lines she shouldn't, but on the other hand, Maude just smelled so nice and felt so soft. Maude slipped from Alicia's grasp, walking out into the kitchen. As she filled the glass with water, she tried to shake the thoughts out from her head. Alicia's gaze, her nose against her neck, her fingers tracing her cheekbone. Maude sighed, shaking her head. What would Jessie make of her? "Are you sure?" A small frown stitched onto her lips. God, her heart broke at the mere thought of it. Soon Maude returned to the room, carrying a glass of water and a pill in her hand. "All right, Alicia. Up, up," Maude cooed. This sounded oddly familiar. When Maude came back in, it felt like not a single second had passed. Alicia propped herself back up at the request, leaning herself against the headrest of the bed, a bashful smile on her face. "Oh, you really do care." She swayed a little, struggling to stay upright. As the glass was set to her lips, she closed her eyes and swallowed the pill back obediently, hands placed on the sides of Maude's arms. After the glass was set aside, she grinned. "Hey, Maude." She made eye contact, then grabbed her arms and yanked her down with her onto the bed. She wrapped her arms around the girl, taking a deep breath in and out. A content sigh. "Can you stay, please? I really don't want to be alone tonight." That was true. She didn't. Maude set a hand on Alicia's shoulder, steadying her as she washed the pill down. She swayed like a wheat field in a hurricane, barely keeping it together. She heard Alicia slur her name. "Hmm?" Maude hummed, but as she turned her face up, she felt her body fling forward with no prior warning. Maude yelped, her arms making quick work of her landing. She propped herself up with her forearms as her hair fell from her shoulder, creating a somewhat curtain between them and the rest of the world. Her face heated. "Alicia!" Her glasses tilted like a puppy's head. "You're not..." She sighed, hanging her head slightly. The glasses perched on her nose threatened to fall. Alicia stared at her with eyes that could have held the Earth's oceans if it needed to. There was something about her tonight that seemed oddly real, strangely genuine. But she couldn't be. Not really. Her words were stitched in the precarious sway of a drunken dance, each step fumbling after the other in a desperate attempt to sound coherent. She smelled of alcohol and what Maude could only presume to be her vape. It made Maude's stomach turn. Alicia seemed desperate to have Maude stay, but why? It's not as if Maude had been a particular source of comfort for her. In fact, Maude seemed to be a thorn in her rose, a rock in her shoe. Why she suddenly wanted to hold Maude here, cuddled like she needed the warmth, for any reason other than the intoxication, Maude blanked. Jessie's face appeared in her mind. She remembered the words Jessie said a week ago. "She doesn't care about you, Maude." For someone who doesn't care, her tears told her otherwise. Maude bit her lip, sighing. She peeled Alicia's arms off her. "I have a girlfriend. I'm sorry, I can't stay here." Maude stood, handing Alicia a nearby hoodie. "Change into this. Come on. You'll regret sleeping in your going-out clothes." Alicia pouted visibly, letting go of Maude without much protest this time, as she leaned her head back against the headboard of the bed again. She groaned pathetically, huffed, then mumbled through slurred words. "You're right. I'm sorry." She rubbed her eyes, smudging the makeup she had on further, and winked sleepily at Maude as the sweater was thrown in her lap. I'm too drunk. If you want me to change, do it yourself." She smirked again, back to the flirty, half-lidded smile. Something clearly dawned on her face again, as the smile lingered and then wavered. Sorry, girlfriend, right?" She sighed. "Fine." She then unceremoniously pulled her shirt over her head, with some struggle, throwing it to the side and leaving her covered only by her bra. She picked up the sweater, turning it and twisting it with an incredibly confused expression on her face, clearly unable to find the proper openings. She groaned in frustration, letting her tired arms drop for a second and sliding down a little. "This sucks. Everything sucks. I hate the world." Your makeup!" Maude tried to contain a smile as she watched Alicia turn into a panda-eyed mess. She snickered, fingers lightly pressed against her lip. "Here, hold on." She reached towards Alicia's dresser, looking through her beauty products. It felt oddly personal, scouring through it, but Maude couldn't possibly let Alicia sleep in her foundation. That's just a plain crime against skin. Maude picked up the makeup remover, looking the bottle over. Not bad." She doused a cotton pad with it, returning to Alicia. "All right, look here." Gently, she tilted Alicia's face up towards her, dragging the pad smoothly upwards her face. Alicia's skin was surprisingly soft, though Maude never figured it wasn't. But seeing her up close, her makeup was damn near perfect, aside from the clear wear of the night. Maude scanned her face, eyes darting from each feature one by one. She'd never noticed how long her eyelashes actually were. This close, Alicia resembled a doll, even. Maude wouldn't lie to herself. Alicia was remarkably pretty. It wasn't any surprise how many girls she managed to have under her arm at every moment possible. She didn't blame them. At this point, Maude wasn't sure whether she was staring at Alicia just to stare at her, or to ignore the fact that Alicia was fully topless aside from her bra. She cleared her throat, finishing up removing her makeup with a gentle wipe of the face. "There," Maude stood. "Now you won't have a sty when you wake up. Lovely." She giggled slightly at Alicia's unwillingness to participate in existing at the current moment, watching as she made herself limp against the bed frame. Maude reached over, pulling the hoodie over her head as she struggled to stick Alicia's arms in the hole. Her necklace dangled in front of Alicia, vanilla perfume wafting from her neck. Alicia stared back as she was inspected, eyes blinking stubbornly at the intrusive wipes, making slight groans of protest as her face was cleaned of all the work she'd put into it. She looked towards Maude with a slight frown, trying to figure out what the girl was thinking, trying to pull the thoughts out of her head through her eyes. Sadly, she hadn't developed any psychic powers in the last few minutes, so all attempts were entirely futile. She sighed defeatedly, then croaked in surprise as Maude grabbed the hoodie and pulled it over her head. Ow! Nothing hurt, really. She was just complaining. "Jeez, not so rough, princess. There's a level of tenderness to be maintained, you know." She placed her hand softly against Maude's neck, just holding it there, thumb lightly tracing her windpipe. "Unless you like it rough." She chuckled to herself, satisfied with her antics. It didn't matter if Maude blocked every move and compliment, shielded herself from every flirtation. If anything, that made it better. She could do this without having to worry about Maude making some huge mistake. Maude was better than that. She wouldn't fall for things like this when she's seeing someone. But also, the fact that it was Jessie she's seeing just made it a little more tempting to push the boundaries, to prove that she wasn't the only one who could get Maude off her game. She wasn't some kind of special, amazing girl that swept Maude off her feet. She was just the first convenient girl that showed interest, that's all. She blinked sleepily, eyelids growing heavier by the moment, but kept smiling coyly at Maude. "You smell nice." Maude scoffed, pushing Alicia's head to the side with a restrained smile. The sheer ridiculousness of it all was baffling. "You're lame." As pretty as Alicia was, Maude wondered how someone could be so easily swooned. All she had right now was a cute face and some smooth words. It was more comical than anything. Maude shook her head, pulling the blanket over Alicia when she had gotten the hoodie onto her properly. "That's enough out of you for one night. Off to bed." She picked up the discarded shirt, throwing it into a nearby laundry basket which seemed to have clothing mostly haphazardly thrown in. "I'm going to continue working. Try not to throw up over the floor because I can't stand the smell." She shivered, unconsciously pushing the hair away from Alicia's face. Maude opened the window to a crack, letting in the cool night breeze. It brushed against Alicia's drunken face, swaying the curtains as it did so. An outline of Maude's pale pink hair illuminated in the dreamy moonlight, like silver in a fog, or pearls in steam. "I'm going now," Maude whispered, walking towards the door. She stood by the doorway, inspecting Alicia for a moment. Still the same drunken mess as she was 2 seconds ago. "Good night." Alicia smiled fondly as Maude pushed her face away and busied herself with making her room more habitable. Her eyes trailed behind her movements, watching her quietly move around. Her limbs were long, but they didn't seem fragile at all. They flowed so practiced, so gracefully. Sometimes it felt like Maude was an actress, and every move she made had been rehearsed 1,000,000 times before. Whispered words and gentle tones, despite her being an absolute nuisance to her, despite her pushing every boundary, pressing every button. What changed to make her so soft towards her? Was it because she was drunk? Was it because she cried earlier? Maybe she should get wasted more often. Good night. Alicia gave Maude a little finger wave and then blew a subdued kiss in her direction. See you tomorrow.